You know, they say money changes people, but what about when it reveals who they truly always were? That's what I learned the hard way after my father passed away. For 20 years, my sister Sarah and we were inseparable. Best friends, partners in crime, the whole 9 yards. We even lived next door to each other, our kids growing up together like siblings, spending every summer day in our shared backyard, building forts and dreaming big. Our parents, God bless them, always taught us that family was everything. A bond stronger than anything, forged in love and unwavering loyalty. And for a long time, I believed it. Truly. My father, George Miller, was our rock. A self-made man who started a small carpentry business from nothing and built it into a thriving enterprise. He was respected in our community, known for his honesty, his quiet strength, and his boundless generosity. He was the kind of dad who taught you how to change a tire, fix a leaky faucet, and always keep your word. My mother, bless her soul, passed away 5 years prior, leaving a gaping hole in our lives. Dad had seemed to cope, burying himself in his work, but his laughter wasn't quite as robust, his steps a little heavier. Sarah and I had rallied around him, believing our bond, born of shared grief, was stronger than ever. Until the day the lawyer called. Mr. Henderson, an old family friend with a kind face and a voice that usually brought comfort, but not that day. That's when our picture-perfect family portrait shattered into a million pieces, revealing a landscape of deceit and betrayal I never could have imagined. The phone call was brief, formal. Your father's will is ready to be read. Please come to my office on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Sarah and I exchanged nervous glances. We knew Dad had his affairs in order, but the reality of it, now that he was gone, felt cold and stark. We went together, clinging to each other for support. Two grieving sisters facing an uncertain future. Oh, how naive I was. I did a perfect job at sticking my head in the sand. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, his eyes scanning the room as if trying to find an escape route. He finally settled on a spot just above our heads. Your father, George Miller, left specific instructions for the distribution of his estate. Sarah squeezed my hand, a gesture of solidarity, or so I thought at the time. My father was a self-made man, a successful small business owner, and always careful with his finances. We always knew he had a comfortable nest egg, enough to provide for us, but we never discussed the specifics. My mother had passed away 5 years prior, and Dad had seemed to cope, keeping his business running, but the spark in his eyes was gone. Mr. Henderson began to read, his voice surprisingly steady despite the visible tension in the room. To my beloved daughter, Emily Miller, I bequeath the family home, free and clear, and 20% of my remaining assets, to be held in trust for its upkeep and your future security. My heart swelled. The house, our childhood home, was something I cherished deeply. It was filled with so many memories, laughter echoing from the living room, the scent of Mom's apple pie, Dad teaching me to ride my bike in the driveway. Sarah squeezed my hand again, but this time it felt tighter, almost a little too tight, as if her grip was tightening around me, not with comfort, but with something else entirely. Then came Sarah's portion. To my daughter, Sarah Miller, I bequeath the sum of $100,000 and 5% of my remaining assets. A sharp, audible gasp escaped my lips. I couldn't help it. Sarah snatched her hand away as if burned. The air in the room became thick with unspoken shock, so heavy you could almost taste it. $100,000? That was barely a fraction of the house value, let alone 20% of the remaining assets? It made no sense. My father loved us equally. He always treated us the same. Christmas gifts, college funds, even advice. Always meticulously fair, always balanced. What was going on? My mind raced, searching for an explanation. Any explanation. Was there a hidden clause? A typo? Sarah's face, usually so composed, so carefully put together, contorted with disbelief. Then, with a simmering anger I'd never seen before, an ugly red creeping up her neck. What? She practically shrieked, jumping out of her chair so violently it scraped loudly against the polished floor. This is a joke, right, Mr. Henderson? My father wouldn't do this. There must be a mistake. He loved me. We were so close. Her voice cracked on the last word, but it was more outrage than grief. Mr. Henderson, visibly flustered, adjusted his glasses. I assure you, Miss Miller, these are your father's explicit wishes, outlined in this legally binding document, signed and witnessed. He pointed a trembling finger to a crisp, unmistakable signature at the bottom of the page. It was undeniably my father's familiar, elegant script. My mind raced. Was there something I didn't know? Something Sarah had done? Or something I had done to inadvertently earn this preferential treatment? Was there a reason my father, the fairest man I knew, would disinherit Sarah in such a cruel, public way? The question swirled, a chaotic storm in my head. We left the lawyer's office in a stunned silence that felt heavier than any shouted argument. It pressed down on us, suffocating. As soon as we were outside on the bustling sidewalk, away from Mr. Henderson's uncomfortable gaze, Sarah turned on me, her eyes blazing with an intensity that made me flinch. You knew, didn't you, Emily? You knew about this. You manipulated Dad. You always did, didn't you? Whispering in his ear, playing the innocent one. I recoiled as if she'd slapped me, the accusation burning hotter than any physical blow. Sarah! How could you even think that? I was as shocked as you were. I had no idea. Why would I ever do that to you, my own sister? My voice cracked with disbelief and a rising sense of betrayal. Oh, come on, she scoffed, a sneer twisting her usually beautiful features. You get the house, the bulk of his money, and I get crumbs? It's too convenient. You've always been the golden child, haven't you? Always Dad's little princess, while I was just Sarah, the one who had to work harder for his attention, the one who was always just a little bit less. Her words stung, reopening old childhood wounds I thought were long healed. My father had loved us equally, or so I believed, but Sarah always had a competitive streak, especially when it came to his attention, a need to be first, to be best. I always thought it was just her personality, never something that would fester into this. That's not fair, Sarah. Dad loved us both. You know he did. There has to be an explanation. Maybe he changed it recently, or there's another will, a codicil we don't know about. I grasped at straws, desperate to make sense of the irrational, to find a logical reason for this devastating disparity, to bridge the sudden, terrifying chasm that had opened between us.
Another will? Don't be ridiculous. He just signed this one a month ago, and he was perfectly lucid. I saw him. No, Emily, this is your doing. You probably poisoned his mind against me. What did you tell him, huh? What lies did you spin about me? Did you talk about my failed business venture? My divorce? Her voice was shrill, attracting stares from passers-by, but she didn't care. The mask was off. Her accusations felt like daggers, piercing through our shared history, tearing down years of sisterly love and trust. I tried to reason with her, to remind her of our bond, our shared grief for Dad, the countless memories of laughter, of supporting each other through heartbreaks and triumphs. But it was like talking to a stranger. The sister I knew, the one who would always have my back, the one who knew my deepest fears and dreams, had vanished, replaced by a venomous, suspicious stranger, consumed by envy and a profound sense of injustice. The chasm between us widened with every bitter, angry word. I saw years of shared memories, laughter, and unwavering support dissolving before my eyes, like a sandcastle washing away with the tide. I couldn't just accept this, not for my sake, but for my father's memory, and for the faint, desperate hope of salvaging my relationship with Sarah. I knew my father. He was fair, meticulous, and deeply loved both of us. This deviation from his character was alarming, a discordant note in the symphony of his life. I had to find an explanation, a truth beyond what the will presented. I started by rereading the will, poring over every word, every clause, scrutinizing the legal jargon, searching for any hidden meaning. Nothing seemed out of place, but the glaring disparity in bequests remained, a constant nagging question. My first thought was to talk to Dad's closest friends, the people who he confided in, the ones who knew his heart better than anyone. I called Uncle Bob, his oldest friend and business partner. He was heartbroken about Dad's passing, his voice thick with grief. But when I cautiously mentioned the will, his voice became hesitant, almost evasive. "Emily, your father, he had some worries. Things he didn't share with everyone, even me. Private matters." He wouldn't elaborate, just gave vague statements about financial concerns and difficult decisions he had to make. It only deepened the mystery, painting a portrait of my father I didn't recognize, a man with deep, unspoken burdens. Next, I went to Dad's office. It was still exactly as he'd left it, neat, organized, filled with the familiar sense of old paper, pipe tobacco, and stale coffee. His worn leather armchair, his meticulously stacked files, even the pen he'd always used, everything was a poignant reminder of him. I spent hours sifting through his files, looking for anything that might explain the will. Old invoices, business contracts, tax documents, nothing. No secret bank accounts, no hidden debts, nothing to suggest a reason for such a drastic change in his will. No sudden financial crisis that would explain it. But then, tucked away in the back of a rarely used drawer, beneath a pile of old, yellowed financial statements from a decade ago, I found it. A small, plain, unmarked envelope, slightly thicker than a letter. My heart hammered in my chest, a sudden, frantic beat against my ribs. Inside, there wasn't money or another will. There was a single, faded, sepia-toned photograph, fragile with age. It was a picture of my father, much younger, probably in his early 20s, his hair still thick and dark, his smile carefree. He was standing with a woman I didn't recognize. She was beautiful, with long, dark, wavy hair and a radiant, slightly shy smile. And in her arms, she held a baby, a tiny, bundled baby girl. My blood ran cold, a chilling wave washing over me. Who was this? And why was Dad holding this photo secretively, tucked away as if it was a forgotten, painful memory? A shiver ran down my spine. The truth, I sensed, was lurking just beyond my grasp, and it was far more complex than I could ever imagine. My mind reeled.
A baby? Another child? My father had never mentioned anyone else. We were his only children. This was a foundation-shattering revelation. I clutched the photo, my hand trembling so violently I thought I might tear the fragile paper. Could this be the reason for the uneven will? Was this a secret sister? The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. I knew I couldn't go to Sarah with this. Not yet. She was too volatile, too consumed by her own anger and sense of injustice. Dropping this bomb on her now would only make things worse, ignite an even greater, more destructive fire. I needed answers, concrete proof, a full story before I approached her. I decided to start with the woman in the photo. She looked vaguely familiar, a fleeting sense of recognition, but I couldn't place her. Was she from our small town, an old family friend I'd only seen in passing? I spent days researching, going through old family albums again, meticulously examining my father's college yearbooks, local historical society records, anything I could get my hands on. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack, but I was relentless. Then, a tiny detail caught my eye. In the background of one of my father's college photos, a grainy black and white image of a campus picnic, there was a girl with similar features to the woman in the secret photo, but a slightly different, more youthful hairstyle. Beneath the photo, written in faded ink, were names. One stood out. Eleanor Vance. Eleanor Vance. The name sparked a distant memory, a faint echo from my childhood. My mother had once mentioned a college friend of my father's named Eleanor, but always vaguely, almost dismissively, as if it was a sensitive topic, something best left unsaid. I started searching online, typing her name into every search engine and social media platform I could think of. It took hours, countless dead ends, until finally I found her. Eleanor Vance, now Eleanor Sterling, a retired art professor living in a charming, quiet town a few states away, nestled in the rolling hills of Vermont. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. I had to meet her. I booked a flight, telling Sarah I needed a break, a solo trip to clear my head after Dad's death and the stress of the will. She scoffed, clearly not believing me, her eyes narrowed with suspicion, but I ignored her. My mission felt too urgent to be swayed by her bitterness. When I arrived at Eleanor's charming little cottage, draped in climbing roses, I was nervous. What if she slammed the door in my face? What if this was all a misunderstanding, a cruel joke of fate? But Eleanor, a graceful woman in her late 70s, with kind, wise eyes that held a hint of profound sadness, opened the door with a gentle smile and invited me in. The air in her home smelled of old books and dried lavender, comforting and serene. I showed her the faded photograph, my hand trembling as I handed it to her. Her eyes widened, and a wistful, almost heartbroken smile touched her lips. "George," she whispered, her voice soft, barely audible above the gentle ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway. "And little Lily." "Lily?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper, my throat suddenly dry. The name felt alien, yet incredibly significant. Eleanor nodded, her eyes glistening. "Yes, your father and I, we had a brief, passionate relationship in college. It was complicated. We were young, barely out of our teens, and his family, they were very traditional, very old money, very concerned with appearances. They didn't approve of me. My family wasn't wealthy enough, didn't have the right connections. When I found out I was pregnant, George wanted to marry me. He truly did. He was so excited, so earnest. But his parents, they threatened to disinherit him, to cut him off completely from the family business, to ruin his future. He was desperate, torn between his love for me and his family's demands. They promised they would arrange everything, discreetly, and that George would be able to visit her, to stay in her life, even anonymously. But they lied. Cruelly. They completely cut off contact with me and ensured George could never find her again after the first few weeks. He never saw Lily again after the first few weeks, after she was placed with her adoptive family. They moved the family, changed all their information. It was a complete, brutal severing. Eleanor's voice broke, the pain of a lifetime etched on her face. My heart ached for my father, for Eleanor, for Lily. The sheer injustice of it all, the manipulation by his own family. So my father, he never forgot her? I asked, my voice thick with emotion, barely above a whisper. The idea of him carrying such a profound secret, such a burden for decades, was almost unbearable. Eleanor shook her head slowly, a sorrowful smile on her lips. Never. He tried for years to find her. He hired private investigators. He wrote countless letters to the adoption agency. He even went back to his parents, begging them for information. But they refused to give him any details, any glimmer of hope. They had ensured it was a closed adoption, impenetrable. It was heartbreaking for him. He carried that guilt, that profound pain, for his entire life. It shaped him, made him a quieter, more burdened man than he might have been. Did my mother know? I asked, a new layer of complexity emerging. The thought of my mother, a woman I adored, possibly living with this secret, or being unknowingly excluded from such a significant part of my father's past, was unsettling. Eleanor hesitated, looking out the window, her gaze distant. I don't know, Emily. He met your mother a few years after Lily was adopted. He was still heartbroken, a shadow of his former self, but he found love again with your mother, a gentle solace. I can't say if he ever told her. He probably kept it a secret to protect her, to protect you girls, to shield you from the pain and shame he felt. He bore that secret alone. Did my mother know? I asked, a new layer of complexity emerging. The thought of my mother, a woman I adored, possibly living with this secret, or being unknowingly excluded from such a significant part of my father's past, was unsettling. Eleanor hesitated, looking out the window, her gaze distant. I don't know, Emily. He met your mother a few years after Lily was adopted. He was still heartbroken, a shadow of his former self, but he found love again with your mother, a gentle solace. I can't say if he ever told her. He probably kept it a secret to protect her, to protect you girls, to shield you from the pain and shame he felt. He bore that secret alone. The pieces started to click into place, forming a coherent, heartbreaking mosaic. My father, a man of immense integrity and deep moral compass, must have carried this unbearable burden for decades. The secret daughter, hidden from his life, from all of us. This must be the true reason for the will. He wasn't trying to punish Sarah. He was trying to right a lifelong wrong. He was trying, in his final act, to provide for the child he was forced to abandon, the child he never stopped loving, the child who had been denied his love and support. And he entrusted me with the bulk of his estate because he knew I would understand, that I would do the right thing, that I would honor his unspoken wish. He trusted me to be his proxy, to right his profound wrong, to extend his love beyond the grave. Did you ever find out what happened to Lily? I asked, a desperate glimmer of hope sparking within me. Did she have a good life? Is she okay? Eleanor's eyes brightened slightly, a small, genuine smile gracing her lips. Yes, about 5 years ago, after her adoptive parents passed away, Lily, driven by a deep need to know her origins, found my name in her adoption papers. She reached out to me. We reconnected. It was a miracle, a true gift from God. She's a wonderful woman, Emily. So kind, so compassionate, so strong despite everything. She's a dedicated nurse, working in a busy hospital in Seattle, helping others with a grace that would make her father so proud. She handed me a recent photo, pulled from her wallet. In it, a woman in her early 50s, with kind, intelligent eyes and a gentle, unassuming smile, stood confidently in front of a bustling hospital entrance. She had Eleanor's dark, wavy hair, but also, unmistakably, my father's deep-set, thoughtful eyes. It was a strange, overwhelming feeling. I had another sister, a sister I never knew existed, whose life was shaped by a tragic, decades-old secret, by the machinations of a family determined to uphold its reputation above all else. This was the unexpected secret the will was revealing, the silent cry from my father's grave. I flew back home, my mind buzzing with the weight of the secret, the complex truth I now carried. The truth was far more profound, more tragic, and more heartbreaking than I could have ever imagined. My father hadn't disinherited Sarah out of malice or favoritism or some arbitrary whim. He was trying to provide for a daughter he was cruelly separated from, a daughter who had missed out on a lifetime of his love, his guidance, his support. And he entrusted me with the bulk of his estate because he knew I would understand, that I would do the right thing, that I would honor his desperate, lifelong wish to atone for a past he couldn't change. He trusted me to be his proxy, to right his profound wrong, to extend his love beyond the grave. But what about Sarah? How would she react to this? Would she understand the depths of our father's pain, the injustice Lily had faced? Or would this devastating secret ignite an even greater, more destructive fury, an unshakable sense of betrayal? I wrestled with the decision for days, turning it over and over in my mind. The old Sarah, the sister I loved, would have understood. But the new Sarah, hardened by resentment, might just see it as another betrayal. Yet I knew I had to tell her. She deserved the truth, however painful. I arranged to meet her at a neutral location, a quiet, upscale coffee shop that usually hummed with gentle chatter, not shouted accusations. When I presented her with the old, faded photograph of Dad, Eleanor, and baby Lily, and then the recent, clear photo of Lily, her face went from confusion to disbelief, then to a frightening shade of purple, her jaw clenching. "What is this, Emily?" she hissed, her voice low but vibrating with suppressed fury, clutching the photos, her knuckles white. "Some kind of sick joke? Another one of your manipulations?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm, rational, devoid of emotion, though my heart was pounding. I explained everything, calmly, rationally, the story Eleanor had told me, the decades of crushing guilt my father carried, the horrific injustice Lily had faced, the cruel machinations of our own grandparents. I even showed her the copies of the adoption papers that Eleanor had provided, documenting the whole tragic, undeniable event. But instead of understanding, instead of the empathy I desperately hoped for, her anger exploded, erupting like a volcano. "So he had a secret love child?" she shrieked, her voice rising, drawing shocked stares from other patrons. "And he's giving her his money? After all these years? while we were here being loyal daughters, living our lives, honoring his name? This is an insult, an absolute betrayal. Not just to us, but to Mom's memory. She's suffered because of him, because of his secrets. How could he do this to us? Sarah, listen to me, I pleaded, trying to keep my voice even, trying to reach through the wall of her rage. Dad wasn't betraying us. He was trying to atone for a lifetime of pain. Lily never had a father. She missed out on everything we had: his love, his guidance, our childhood memories. This isn't about taking money from us. It's about acknowledging a child he was forced to abandon, a child who never got to be his daughter in life. I don't care, she shrieked, pushing her chair back violently, drawing more stares. He should have told us. He should have done this differently. He should have left us his money, his real daughters, not some stranger he hid for 50 years. This is an absolute disgrace. I'm going to contest this will. I'm going to make sure that that stranger doesn't get a single penny. I'll expose him, expose everything. Her voice was shrill, filled with a raw, ugly rage, a venomous spite I barely recognized. It was clear that the concept of another sibling, a secret one, especially one with a claim to her inheritance, was too much for her to process, too much for her ego to bear. The chasm between us, I realized, with the sickening lurch, might now be impossible to bridge. True to her word, Sarah initiated legal proceedings to contest the will. She hired a ruthless, high-profile lawyer who specialized in inheritance disputes, a woman known for her aggressive tactics and merciless cross-examinations. The headlines were brutal, splashed across local newspapers and online tabloids. Family feud over secret child. Sisters battle over father's hidden legacy. Shocking will reveals paternity scandal. It was humiliating, exquisitely painful, and publicly aired our deepest family secrets, tearing apart the carefully constructed facade of our perfect family. I contacted Lily and explained the situation, preparing her for the inevitable storm. She was shocked, her voice quiet and steady, but incredibly understanding. "Emily, I don't want to cause any trouble," she said, her voice gentle, without a trace of entitlement. "I just wanted to know who my father was. That's all I ever wanted. I don't need his money. I have my own life, my own career. I wanted to know my roots." Her humility, her complete lack of greed only strengthened my resolve. My father had chosen me for a reason, trusting me to do what was right, and I wouldn't let him down. I would fight for his last wishes and for Lily's rightful place in our family, however complicated that was. The legal battle was grueling, an agonizing marathon of accusations and emotional manipulation. Sarah's lawyer painted a picture of me as a manipulative opportunist, exploiting my father's alleged senility to gain more money. They tried to discredit Eleanor, to twist her story, to claim Lily wasn't truly my father's child, demanding DNA tests, attempting to poke holes in every piece of evidence. They argued that my father had been coerced, that he was suffering from cognitive decline in his last months. But I had the undeniable evidence, the old, faded photos, Eleanor's unwavering, poignant testimony, even old, secret letters from my father to Eleanor, found tucked away in a hidden compartment of his desk, expressing his profound pain and regret over their lost child. Each letter was a tearful testament to his enduring love and guilt. During one of the most intense court hearings, Lily came to support me. It was the first time Sarah and Lily had ever been in the same room. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Sarah glared at her from across the courtroom, her eyes full of raw venom, a visceral hatred that shocked me. But Lily, calm and composed, simply met her gaze with quiet dignity, a silent strength. There was no animosity in Lily's eyes, only a quiet understanding, a profound sadness for the sister who refused to see her. It was a stark contrast to Sarah's bitter, ugly fury. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for meticulous fairness and a sharp legal mind, listened intently to all the arguments, all the tears, all the accusations. She considered every piece of evidence, every testimony, and the immense emotional toll on everyone involved. The trial lasted for weeks, each day bringing new accusations, new heartaches, new glimpses into the dysfunctional depths of our family. The strain on me was immense. I was losing sleep, constantly anxious, my stomach tied in knots. I was grieving not only my father, but the sister I thought I knew, the bond that had been shattered beyond repair. It was a dark, exhausting period of my life. Finally, the day of the verdict arrived. The courtroom was packed, buzzing with anticipation, a morbid curiosity filling the air. Sarah sat rigidly beside her lawyer, her face a mask of defiant expectation, her eyes narrowed, occasionally darting venomously towards me. I sat with my lawyer, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Lily by my side, offering a reassuring squeeze of my hand. Her quiet strength was a balm to my frayed nerves. The judge began to speak, her voice clear and resonant. She acknowledged the emotional complexity of the case, the profound tragedy of a lost child, and the father's attempt to reconcile his past in his final act. She stated that while the will was indeed unusual in its distribution, there was no credible evidence of undue influence or lack of mental capacity on my father's part. She cited my father's meticulous nature, the long-standing guilt he carried, proven by the letters and Eleanor's testimony, and his clear, documented intent to provide for Lily. Therefore, she concluded, her voice firm, unwavering, the will of George Miller is upheld as written. A collective gasp went through the courtroom, quickly followed by whispers. Sarah let out a strangled, guttural cry, jumping up from her seat, shouting, "No, this is an outrage. This is an injustice. He would never do this. It's a lie." Her lawyer tried to quiet her, pulling at her arm, but she was beyond control, consumed by fury and disbelief. She stormed out of the courtroom, pushing past reporters, refusing to even look at me or Lily, her exit a chaotic, dramatic end to the proceedings. Lily, on the other hand, just squeezed my hand again, a silent acknowledgement. She wasn't celebrating. There was no triumph in her eyes. She was simply accepting, her expression a mix of relief and profound sadness for the family that couldn't. In the aftermath, once the dust settled and the initial shock wore off, I did what I knew my father would have wanted. I reached out to Lily and offered her the house and the full share of my father's assets that the will had dictated for her. It was rightfully hers, morally and legally. "Emily, I can't," she said, tears welling in her eyes, her voice filled with genuine humility. "This is your family home. You and Sarah grew up here. It's filled with your memories. I don't want to cause more division, more pain. Just knowing about my father, finding you, that's enough for me." "Lily, I insisted," my own voice thick with emotion. "This is what Dad intended. This was his final wish. He wanted to give you a fresh start, to make up for what he couldn't do in life. We can share it. You can visit any time. You are family now. You are my sister." After much persuasion, she agreed to a substantial portion of the assets, but insisted on sharing the responsibility of the house and some of the financial burden, demonstrating her humility and complete lack of greed. We became incredibly close. The bond forged in the crucible of this shared family drama proving to be strong and true. We discovered a mutual love for gardening, for old black and white movies, and for remembering our father through a new, more complete, and deeply compassionate lens. We built new memories in that old house, a testament to resilience and healing. As for Sarah, she never truly forgave me or our father. She cut off all contact, refusing my calls, sending back my letters unopened. It's a wound that may never heal, a painful void where a sister used to be. But I have found a different kind of family, a deeper understanding of love, loss, and the hidden truths that shape us. My father's will didn't just distribute his assets, it brought a lost daughter back into our lives, a sister I never knew I had. And in doing so, it revealed the true, complex meaning of family, for better or worse. It showed me that even in the greatest family disputes, even when the world seems to be falling apart, there can be unexpected revelations, profound healing, and sometimes even a beautiful new beginning. My father's legacy wasn't just about money. It was about truth and the enduring power of love that transcends time and secrets.